of West Africa. WADR. We are your trusted voice across the region.
WADR, promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar and 1 o'clock in Maiduguri. Good afternoon and welcome to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world at wadr.org. First, our top stories. Investigative report reveals sudden loss of altitude and lift course helicopter crash in Ghana.
All pitch altitude is consistent with downdraft associated with changing environmental conditions over high terrain. There's limited national navigational capacity, a capability.
Colonel Dabere of Burkina Faso takes command of United Force of the Sahel State Alliance. Gambian Authority holds memorial in honor of November 11, 1994 victims.
The best way to honor the victims is also through action and speedy action.
And several young people on trial for a cyber fraud case in Côte d'Ivoire. Please stay tuned for details of the stories and more.
Here is Imo Edit with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast. Let's begin in Benin, where the opposition Democrat Party has announced plans to challenge the rejection of its candidacy by the Autonomous Electoral Commission, SENA, for the upcoming municipal elections. During a press conference on Tuesday, the party announced a deliberate maneuver to exclude it from the electoral process. The political party of former President Bodiaye vowed to challenge its rejection by the Electoral Commission through all legal avenues available. Christopher Ticho has the details in this report.
The Democrats' National Secretary General for Communication, Gemi Tokbe, read the party's statement. He announced that the political party had submitted nearly 29,000 documents to cover all 546 districts of Benin. However, only 473 of the party's cases have been challenged, a number significantly lower than that of other political parties.
We have found 3,630 positions for the 546 districts of the country. Let this be clear to everyone. We have 546 districts per year under the administration of this municipality, and these 546 districts provide 3,630 positions, and we are the ones who made this happen.
Additionally, the Democrats claimed to have encountered what they described as unjustified administrative obstacles. They report that some of their candidates were unable to obtain necessary documents such as tax clearance certificates and certificate of nationality. The opposition party also reported instances of intimidation and arrest of its members, which they view as attempts to silence dissent. In response to the recent invalidation decision, the political party of former President Boni Yaye has announced its intention to strongly contest the decision of the National Autonomous Electoral Commission, SENA, while the party calls on the international community to closely monitor the progress of the electoral process in Benin.
A report from WDL's correspondent Aziz Adam Souley in Cotonou and voiced by Christopher Atucho. Well, back in Senegal, political disagreement has begun breeding between President Bashir Diomaye Faye and the ruling Passive Party. In a letter dated Tuesday, November 11, President Faye terminated Ida Mbodj's position as head of the Diomaye presidential coalition that helped him to rise to power in March 2024. The president explained that his decision was made to reorganize the coalition for greater efficiency and better structure. He has appointed former Prime Minister Aminata Touré to lead effort towards the relaunch of the coalition's activities. However, the president's decision was promptly rejected by the ruling Passive Party. In a statement late Tuesday, the party asserted that the Senegalese head of state does not have the authority to dismiss Ajamboj, who was appointed by the Conference of Leaders. Additionally, the party expressed its disapproval of Aminata Touré's appointment, citing a lack of shared values with her. Now let's take it to Ghana, where the Aircraft Accident and Incident Investigation and Prevention Bureau has confirmed that a sudden and powerful downdraft caused the military helicopter crash that resulted in the death of 8 individuals. On Tuesday, November 11, investigator and retired pilot Captain Paul Fojo announced the final report at Jubilee House, concluding the technical phase of the inquiry. The report highlights rapidly changing weather conditions and unstable air over elevated terrain as the primary factors contributing to the tragic incident. Take a listen to retired pilot Captain Paul Fojo.
There was adverse weather, there was limited visibility, there was rising rugged terrain, with this terrain induced complicating factors, and there were no ground-based navigational route aids en route. The investigation would like to say that from everything they gathered, the emergency response was very timely. The fact that these first responders managed to get to the site in about 2 hours was remarkable because the terrain has very steep slopes. It was raining, it was slippery, so it wasn't the easiest thing to do. The investigation determined that the accident was caused by the sudden loss of altitude and lift due to downdraft. This loss of altitude without change in power or pitch altitude is consistent with downdraft associated with changing environmental conditions over high terrain. In our findings also, we said there's limited national navigational capacity, a capability for en route and remote area weather services. We also looked at training and realized that the Air Force doesn't have much simulator training. We looked at flight monitoring and realized that there was no flight data monitoring also taking place. For flight following and tracking of aircrafts, we realized that it was also not there. There's no secondary surveillance radar, no automatic dependent surveillance broadcasts, or any other real-time tracking of aircraft.
Captain Paul Fojo is an investigator and a retired pilot. Staying in Ghana, there is tragic news following the death of 6 persons in a stampede that occurred in the early hours of today during an armed forces recruitment exercise. A statement issued by the Ghana Armed Forces confirmed the death and the injury of scores of others who are currently receiving emergency care at the 37 military hospital. The stampede has been attributed to a breach in security protocol. WDL's Dakar correspondent Nadi Detete reports.
The Ghana Armed Forces deeply regrets to inform the general public of a tragic stampede prior to the commencement of the 2025-2026 recruitment exercise today, Wednesday, 12 November 2025, at the Awak Sports Stadium, Accra. Preliminary investigations indicate that the stampede was triggered by an unexpected surge of applicants who breached security protocol and rushed into the gates ahead of scheduled screening at about 6:20 a.m. The unfortunate incident led to the death of 6 potential recruits and many others injured. The injured are currently receiving emergency medical care at the 37 military hospital. Ghana Armed Forces assures the general public that medical teams are working tirelessly to stabilize affected individuals. Meanwhile, arrangements are being made to notify the families of the deceased. The Ghana Armed Forces extends its deepest condolences to the families of the deceased and wishes a swift recovery to those injured. Further updates will be communicated.
Now they did today file that report.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Well, let's turn our attention now to the Gambia, where the National Human Rights Commission, along with the Victims and Families Foundation, held a solemn ceremony in Banjul, the capital, to honor victims of the November 11, 1994 incident. This tragic event involved soldiers and officers of the Gambian Armed Forces who were killed without trial based on allegations of involvement in a counter-coup. On Tuesday, families of the victims, including human rights advocates and representatives of civil society groups, gathered to reflect on this historic occurrence and called for justice. WDL's Banjul correspondent Sang Donameni has the rest of the story.
The day honored the soldiers and officers of the Gambia Armed Forces who were executed without trial over their alleged involvement in a counter-coup. Emmanuel Daniel Diouf, chairman of the National Human Rights Commission, emphasized the importance of remembering these events. He says the day serves as a reminder for the nation to uphold justice and protect human rights.
The best way to honor the victims is also through action, and speedy action, by ensuring that the rights they were denied become the rights we protect for all.
This year's commemoration was themed turning grief into action and fostering a collective purpose for the victims and their families. It reaffirms the country's commitment to accountability and human rights. Balo Sedikan, chairman of the November 11th Victims and Families Foundation, urged Gambians to continue seeking truth and justice.
It is time to honor those who sacrificed their lives, to reaffirm our commitment to peace and justice, and to ensure that such tragedies are never repeated.
Meanwhile, the November 11, 1994 incident remains one of the darkest chapters in the Gambia's history. The commemoration also serves as a reminder of the importance of justice, due process, and the national healing. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Sangdona Mendy, reporting from Banjul.
Colonel Eric Dabire, a senior officer in the Burkinabe Army and former commander of Burkina Faso's 3rd Military Region, has been named as the new commander of the United Force of the Sahel States Alliance. Based in Niamey on the grounds of Air Base 101, formerly occupied by French forces of Operation Bacchane, the USAS comprises 5,000 soldiers from the armies of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. This joint force was established to strengthen regional military cooperation and improve operational coordination in the fight against armed terrorist groups operating in the three-border region. Colonel Eric Dabire, renowned for his strategic rigor and operational experience, will be tasked with bringing this shared ambition to fruition, ensuring the security and stability of the Sahel by the Sahel's own people. This marks a major symbolic and political turning point as Air Base 101, a symbol of yesterday's foreign military presence, now becomes the headquarters of a sovereign Sahelian force. Let's head now to the Central Sahel region, particularly in Mali, where the first edition of the International Defense and Security Exhibition known as BAMEX is currently taking place in the capital Bamako. Approximately 30 Turkish companies are showcasing various types of weaponry at the exhibition park. The aim of the event is to enhance cooperation between Bamako and Ankara in the fields of defense, cybersecurity, and counter-terrorism. Abdullah tells us more.
The first edition of the International Defense and Security Exhibition takes place amid a tense security situation characterized by an increase in JNIM attacks in Central Sahel region. In response to the situation, BAMEX aims to serve as a platform for uniting efforts to tackle terrorist threats in the Sahel. General Abdoulaye Maiga, Mali's Prime Minister, emphasized this sentiment.
The success of the existential struggle against terrorism now requires sincere anticipation, innovation, and strengthening the cooperation. Faced with these many challenges, Africa has no choice but to build an autonomous security architecture based on cooperation and mutualization.
For 2 days, approximately 30 Turkish manufacturers of modern armaments are showcasing their innovations in land, air, and naval defense, as well as advancements in cybersecurity and electronic warfare at the Bamako Exhibition Park. General Sergio Camara, the Minister of Defense, stated that this exhibition represents a significant step toward enhancing regional cooperation in defense and security. He also praised the strengthening of military collaboration between Bamako and Ankara.
This event is the concrete proof that Mali is well frequented and intends to occupy its place on the international scene. Despite the long-stranded conspiracy and the current media cabal, Mali will survive. President Goïta and Erdogan share this vision of a world based on winning cooperation.
Following the International Defense and Security Exhibition, exercises will take place in Koulikoro, located about 60 kilometers from Bamako, to assess the performance of the equipment displayed.
Abdullah Hassan with the details of Aliu Cham's report from Bamako. Elsewhere, the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency, LDEA, destroyed over 40 million Liberian dollars, approximately $257,000 worth of confiscated drugs on Tuesday. Authorities announced that 178 suspected drug traffickers and dealers are facing charges in connection with these seizures. The drug destruction, described as a routine operation by the LDEA, involved narcotics confiscated during enforcement actions conducted between September and October across Liberia's 15 subdivisions. WDL's Monrovia correspondent Abraham Parker reports.
The seized substances, which included 395 grains of cocaine, 147.6 grains of heroin, 5,129 grains of crude, 4,123 grains of marijuana, and 111,378 tramadol pills. Speaking at the Brainy site, LDEA officer in charge, Fejeriat Biako, emphasized that these confiscations resulted from a collaborative effort among security agencies.
We have made our commitment to the Liberian people. As we stand today, someone always say that the generation after all will be better. I from the school are taught that if we don't lay the foundation for the generation after all to be better, we don't expect the angels from heaven time to make the generation after all to be better. We have to lay the ground rules. There's a time to serve. There's now a time to merry-make. There should not be a celebration for the LDA. There should be a beginning of a new day, because we should not have that kind of situations where we burning thousands of bears or drugs. It should be prevented even beyond our borders.
Health Minister Louis Sokpoto lauded the LDA's effort and pledged the support of a multi-sectorial task force on drugs and substance abuse.
The committee on drugs and substance abuse is a sectorial committee. We want to reconfirm our commitment to the LDA.
Meanwhile, the suspects range in age from 18 to 70, comprising 55 females and 123 males. Among them are 113 Liberians, 17 Guineans, 1 Nigerian, 6 Ivorians, and 3 Sierra Leoneans. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Investigative report reveals sudden loss of altitude and lift course helicopter crash in Ghana. Colonel Dabiri of Burkina Faso takes command of United Force of the Sahel State Alliance. Gambian Authority holds memorial in honor of November 11, 1994 victims. And still ahead in the news, several young people on trial for a cyber fraud case in Côte d'Ivoire. We don't have the press review, a guest interview, and sports news. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
We're streaming live on WADR.org on YouTube and Facebook. Crossing over now to Côte d'Ivoire, where several young people are facing charges in a large-scale cyber fraud case, estimated at over 1 billion CFA francs. They are being prosecuted for unauthorized access to computer systems, conspiracy to commit cyber crimes, and identity theft. The accused individuals appeared in court on Tuesday. Augustin Kohli reports.
In total, 6 young people aged between 20 and 27 have been on trial in this case since the beginning of November. They are accused, among other things, of alleged criminal association and digital identity theft. The defendants categorically denied the charges against them and accused the police officers of forcing them to confess. On Tuesday, the court heard testimonies from 2 officers of the National Agency for Information System Security who were in charge of the operation to dismantle the network. The case follows a referral from the Swiss justice system, which transmitted several elements of the investigation to the Ivorian authorities. Through a phone number and email address, investigators were able to locate the home of the suspected ringleader, where the 6 young men were caught in carrying on their operation. According to the investigative report, their modus operandi consisted of creating fake profiles on Facebook and on the marketplace platform with the aim of trapping online sellers and diverting their funds via PayPal. The public prosecutor has requested a 10-year prison sentence and a fine of 75 million CFA francs for each of them. Côte d'Ivoire, a civil party in the case, claimed 100 million CFA francs in damages by defendant, arguing that this affair seriously damages the country's image. However, the defense pleaded for leniency from the court, citing the youth and immaturity of the defendants. Before the closing arguments, the defendants apologized and asked for forgiveness from the court. The verdict is therefore expected on November 19, 2025.
A report from WDL's Abidjan correspondent Marcel Arston Blair and voiced by Augustin Coley. Now from Abidjan we head to Togo, where young people from across the country express commitment to implementing the Youth, Peace and Security Agenda. They formalized this commitment in a resolution signed at the conclusion of a national conference on Tuesday in Lomé. Participants noted that the discussions were instrumental in identifying priority issues, engagement mechanisms and opportunities for ensuring active youth participation in governance and stability in the country. The two-day meeting brought together over 50 young individuals from all 6 regions of the country. It was organized by WANEP Togo in partnership with the International Organization of the Francophonie, the African Union and the Togolese government. Here are reactions of participants and organizers of the national conference.
One of the aspects is the strengthening of the capacity of these young people with whom we work to accompany them on taking into account their body and the prevention they can do so as not to fall into vices related to the question of peace and security.
The discourse of hope that exists now, the discourse of appropriation of the question of how to build peace together, a great international program. 2 days of consultation with young people to exchange with them on this international case, which is based on the Resolution 2050. This resolution recognizes the role of young people not only as victims of conflicts, but as young people who can also bring solutions to security issues, to peace issues, to development issues.
Those were participants and organizers of the National Conference on the Youth, Peace and Security Agenda in Togo.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
Well, let's join Sankule Janko for a review of the dailies from the Gambia.
Welcome to the newspaper review. We begin with the Standard newspaper today, and the lead story on the Standard newspaper reads, Government Vehicle Control denies selling Jammeh's vehicles without authority. That's the lead story. It's related to the Commission of Inquiry on the sale and disposal of former President Jammeh's assets. This one reads, receiver says cabinet ordered transfer of some Jammeh properties to the state. Barrow justifies new payment system for groundnut. That is another story. CPA raises concern over the use of children at Bakote Dam site. Protest CPA is Child Protection Alliance. Executed November 11 soldiers remembered at anniversary. Let's move on to the Foro newspaper. The lead story in the Foro newspaper reads, State House Vehicle Controller denies receiving $20,000 from MSA personnel. Child protection funding set to rise by over $6 million in 2026 draft budget. Auditors flag $10 million stadium renovation over unjustified single sourcing. And finally, let's move on to the Point newspaper. The lead story on the Point newspaper reads, Dabo slams illegal issuance of ID cards abroad, unveils vision for diaspora. Dabo is lawyer Usainu Dabo, the opposition leader in the Gambia. And finally, farmers call for higher groundnut prices, improved roads network. These are the major stories making headlines on Gambian dailies. It's back to you in the studio.
Many thanks, Sankule Janko.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Let's take you back to Ghana, where the nation continues to reflect on the tragic military helicopter crash that claimed 8 lives. On Tuesday, the Aircraft Accident and Incident Investigation and Prevention Bureau concluded its inquiry, confirming that a sudden and powerful downdraft triggered by unstable weather conditions was responsible for the crash. To help us unpack the findings, understand what this means for aviation safety, and explore how such tragedies can be prevented in the future, we're joined by Alhaji Ibad Ibrahim, an international security consultant with a career background in diplomacy, working with ambassadors from the Middle East.
First of all, as a security consultant, to the Republic of Ghana, one of our sensitive state security institutions. I'm privy to the fact that over the course of time, the Ministry of Defense has made an argument for more expenditure on Ghana's defense, and that includes human resource and investment in equipment. And so, to hold brief, for the Republic of Ghana, aviation accidents happen even in the most sophisticated countries. In the United States of America, recently we've seen a barrage of such accidents, Kobe Bryant and a host of others, including military aerial devices like helicopters, UAVs, and airplanes. So it is not unique to Ghana that there has been a force majeure, an act of nature coupled with some mechanical challenges leading to such a high-profile accident. But as a country, we are picking up the lessons. But one thing that is interesting is the fact that the investigation so far has not found any traces of foul play. And for me, that is significant.
Okay.
Because this accident happened at a time the top brass of the military were changed because of the change of government. So there were a lot of conspiracy theories.
A couple of recommendations have been pushed to the government, and in your response earlier, you talked about procurement in terms of modern equipment for the military and security of the country. How soon do you think these recommendations will be put into action?
Unfortunately, as a consultant working from across the political divide, our politicians are not quick enough to continue defense initiatives that have been bequeathed to them by the former government. So there are recommendations we make all the time on counterterrorism, the Accra Initiative, on aerial defense and all that. But unfortunately, because of how polarized the Republic of Ghana is, when a party hands over to a new political party, there's so much acrimony and that you wouldn't want to hand over learned lessons and expertise because you want the new party that has come to power to fail. That is the only way you come back to power in future. So unfortunately, that is the reality we've had to contend with as Ghanaians. But those of us who sit on the fence, who are forward-looking, who don't mind whose ox is God, and that we want the right things to be done, I believe there should be a bipartisan approach towards this. I've already said that there's no need for blame game. What are the lessons we need to learn? And again, another recommendation I'm making is that in the Republic of Ghana, we have what we call, or what I call, the politics of gallery. We don't believe in the power of delegating. Okay. So when there is a project here or an event there, you would see high-profile people come from the capital to sometimes, far-off areas with rugged terrain and all that. And we are told that His Excellency the President was supposed to be on this particular flight. So you can imagine what would have happened if the President was on the flight. So I think going forward, especially on security-related matters like fighting against illegal mining and a host of other crimes, when there are events, we should allow the ministers in the various provinces and regions. That is why they are delegated. And when they are delegated, it means they represent the central government.
Do you think the recommendations and the lessons learned from this report and incident can also be applied to the general aviation across the country?
By and large, to be fair to the Republic of Ghana, our airspace has been one of the safest in West Africa and on the larger African continent. There are only rare cases. Historically, we have never experienced a crash of this nature. Whether military or commercial aircraft, sometimes there are emergency landing situations here and there. But for a crash to lead to such a high death toll, it's unprecedented in the history of the Republic of Ghana. So we would want to allay and assuage the fears of African counterparts and international partners that this is an isolated aviation accident and Ghana's airspace is open for business.
Alhaji Bad Ibrahim is an international security consultant. And in sport news, the Super Eagles of Nigeria boycotted their training session in Rabat, Morocco on Tuesday ahead of their 2026 FIFA World Cup Africa playoff against Gabon over unpaid bonuses. A top team official who preferred not to be named confirmed the development. It was learned that the players, along with some officials, refused to train in protest over outstanding allowance. The Nigerian Football Federation is yet to issue an official statement on this matter. And we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Ismaila Kamara and Mustafa Sek for the technical support. I am Imo Aidet. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, New Imi FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kaigama 94.5 FM, Niba County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Banga, Liberia, Radio Gulf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone in Nigeria, and Love 104.5 FM Abuja.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about